And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Alma Mater. This is a new game from Eggert Spiel, Plan B Games, and last year they had released, or a couple years ago, they released Coimbra, which was a dice drafting game, big economic Euro-style game, and Alma Mater looks very similar to that, except it's in a school theme. Now the school theme is really brought home by the fact that this game comes with plastic books, and this is going to be the big selling piece of the game. When you see these, you're going to be like, ooh. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, I'll just give you a heads up here, the theme here doesn't mean a tremendous amount. It's just a bunch of mechanisms in a box. Teachers giving lectures and you getting students, but at the end of the day, points. All right, that's fine. Let's take a look at how the game plays. We're not going to go over every minor rules of this game. There's a lot going on, but the main thing is that you are going to be recruiting both students and teachers into your school. That's a lot of the ways you're going to get points over the course of this game. Players are going to start the game by having some setup cards. You're actually going to be drafting from these and taking the things on these. You're going to get to have 3 of these cards. So some of them are going to give you dictionaries, some will give you books of your own color, that's what the star means, or take a book of your choice, move up on the research track, take money, take points. Some of them even give you a student to start with. There's one that gives points. And so players will be picking these, but also taking note of the top numbers here, because there are going to be, in each game, a certain number of these chancellors available. These are essentially special abilities that you will have. And whoever has the lowest number will pick one of these first. So everyone's going to get one. The fourth is going to be, or the leftover one's going to be placed here on top of this pile of busts. Now these busts are going to be here over the course of the game, and if you ever accomplish the task above it, for example, this one here shows 3 check mark, which means if you get to the 3rd check mark, 1, 2, 3 on the research track, you immediately will take a bust here, bust A, get the bonus, which gives you an extra worker, and you now have access to the special abilities. So you could have access to all 3 special abilities if you meet these requirements, and these requirements are things that will change from game to game. Each player is going to have their own board here. This is where you're going to be putting students. As you collect students in this game, you're going to place the first one you get in the bottom row here of the B column, and the next one in the top row of the A column. And this does a couple things. At the end of the game, you multiply your A times your B for points, and this shows you the different points. Teachers give you points. Some students will give you points. You get points for different bus cards you have. But these students are also going to be giving you special abilities. Like, for example, when I take this one here, he instantly gives me a coin and a dictionary, and then every income phase I get another coin and a dictionary. And as you add them to the A row, this keeps the number of books that you can keep from round to round. So if I go over at the beginning of the game, you can only keep 6 books, but now I can keep 7, and in fact this student gives me an extra 4. I can keep 11 books from round to round. When you put a student here, you'll get an extra worker, and as you place students here, you have to pay money. These spots are harder to get into. Players are going to have an area up here, a bookcase, where they're going to be able to display books. And whenever you do any action, that gives you a book with a star on it. In fact, each person starts with a student. I can go here and pay 1 coin for books with stars on. I can take books of my own color. So I could pay 4 coins if I go there and buy 4 books of my own color. And when I do that, when they have the star, I can either put them in my supply or I can display them in my bookcase up here. Now, you always start from right to left, and there's 2 reasons to do this. One is, between each round, you're going to get a coin for every book you have displayed up here. So the more you have up there, the better your income is. Secondly, other players, there's an action space in the board where they can buy them from you. This is the cost above them that it costs, and they buy from left to right. And after a player buys a book, let's say they buy these 2 books from me, they can take one of these bookcases and flip it over and get points for it. So they would pick the 3, obviously. and that's a way to get points from the other players. And so you're constantly going to be using this space and other ways to get books into these spots so that you can make money from turn to turn. But you can never take books and put them over here and use them, and you can't take books from your supply and put them in here either. These books will be used for other things. So the main meat of the game, each round, and there are 6 rounds in the game, are players placing their workers on the board. You start with 4, but you can have up to 6. And there's even a few ways to get tutors, which are basically extra workers that you can use one time. When you place a worker somewhere, you'll do the action of that spot. If someone else wants to go to that exact same action, they would have to put 2 there, and then the next person would have to put 3 there, etc. And you can only use each spot once. The only spots that are immune to that are down here. When you put workers down here, you're going to get 2, 5, or 8, depending on how many workers you place here. And everyone can go there, doesn't matter. The most workers here will determine turn order for the next round. And also players can go here, where you can spend money to buy books from other players, or you can spend 4 coins to buy the dictionaries. You can also go to this spot here to buy books and dictionaries from any player. And here you can move on the research track. Now, over the course of the game, you're going to be able to move on the research track. You'll get these green research track tokens. If that's the case, you simply move up the next level of the research track. And if you ever move to this spot directly under a check mark, you move up to the check mark, and you get the bonus of that check mark. Here you can buy a teacher, and you have to use books, but you don't have to use the coin cost. And then you just keep going. If you do the black cogs here, you'll notice this lets me do 3 of those. You can move up to 3 times, in this case, on this track, but then you have to pay the cost on each space. So the first cost here is 3 coins. Here it's 2 coins and 3 points, or you need to have 3 students. Here you have a teacher, or you pay a book and 3 coins. So as long as you can afford these costs, which are going to change, and these cards will change from game to game. There's a A through E card here, and there's going to be different costs placed on them. But you can move up faster by paying, or you can move slower but get it for free. There's also a space on the board here where you can simply pay 10 coins for 7 points. But like I said, the main way to get points is by recruiting teachers and students. At the end of every round, you're going to see who's highest on the research track here, because their books are going to be the most popular. And then you'll have a second, third, and fourth, or just 3 if you're playing with less than 4 players. And whoever's books are the least popular is going to get extra money from round to round, but that's going to matter when recruiting a student. So when you recruit a student, you'll go to one of the spaces in that row, and you can take a student there, and you have to pay the books at the top. So here I need to pay 2 books that are the same color from either the first and second position, and then 1 book of a different color. If I want someone from the last row, I pay 1 book, it would have to be a blue book, or 2 blue books, then 2 black or green books, and then 2 dictionaries. So those books are going to change based on how high people are on this track. Also, how high you are on the research track at the end of the game will give you bonus points if you are in top place. Now, these students, as I said, are ways to get points. Some of them, like in this column, will give you bonus points at the end of the game. Like this one gives you 2 points for every check mark you reached, 3 points for every bust you have. And the rest are just going to give you sometimes immediate benefits and then special abilities. Teachers are very similar to students, except they can give lectures. So when I take a teacher, if I take this teacher, for example, I need to give 3 books of one color, 2 of another, 1 of another. So let's say, for example, I decide to pay 3 dictionaries, 2 greens, and 1 black. I also need to pay 6 coins here for the cost of this particular teacher. So since I paid 3 yellows, I'll put a yellow there, 2 greens, and a black. The rest of the books are discarded. And I take this teacher. From now on, if someone else wants to take the same teacher, they need to pay 3 yellows, 2 greens, and 1 black. They have to pay the same thing I did, but they don't have to pay the money costs. As for me, I'll put this teacher in front of me, and since the book I used the most of was the dictionaries, I'll put a dictionary on it. On future rounds, I can spend a dictionary to exhaust the teacher and use the special ability. That's them giving a lecture. When you first buy the teacher, you give a lecture for free. So I buy this teacher, I can move up 1 free spot on the research track. But on future turns, I can pay a dictionary, and every time I pay a dictionary, I tap him, and I get to move up on the research track. And there's all sorts of abilities that the teachers give you. Move up on a research track, use one of the workers you already placed, get a dictionary, a book of what color, and a book of your own color. Some of them give extra points at the end of the game, and all of them are worth a certain amount of points at the end of the game. That's pretty much the basics of this game. You're going to be collecting teachers, collecting students, collecting money and books from round to round. The game will last for 6 rounds. At the end of 6 rounds, you will do final scoring, which is listed here on the bottom of your board. So you just go through each thing. You know, some of your money turns into points. The different busts you got are worth points, your students, and so on. And whoever has the most points is the winner. The components for the game are fantastic. Obviously, the books are the main thing here. Plastic books, they look fantastic. They feel good. You know, so there's that. Now, there is the color palette thing. We got red and green, which may not work for everybody. I do like the putting the students in here. It is a recessed board, so they slide around. I'm also a big fan of the artwork of this game. I really like the look and feel to it. Now, I'm showing everything here inside the insert. This I'm not as keen on. It's a nice insert and it holds everything, but you have to take your time putting everything in. The books here, I have them carefully placed. I got to put all the coins here. Everything has to be set up a good chunk of time. This board holds everything in place, but I'm still nervous about it. It's a nice insert. I just don't think I'm going to be keeping it because it takes so long for me to put everything away in it each game. But if you do like nice inserts, you can't complain. It's a really fantastic one. There's definitely a lot going on in Alma Mater. It's kind of interesting to me that there is so much variety in the game. It doesn't necessarily feel like it at first. I mean, you're playing with the same group of students every round, but the research track is going to change every game. The requirements for the chancellors are going to change. The chancellors themselves are going to change. Your starting resources are going to change, and the teachers are going to change. That's a lot of variety in a game. It doesn't make the game play extremely differently. And there's no other randomness. Like the randomness is in that setup faction and then just how people do things. There's not enough teachers and not enough students to go around. You use a different side of the board for 2 or 3 players, although a 2-player game's very similar to a 3-player game in which there's kind of a neutral player involved. But it's also a very interactive game. You are constantly buying books from other players, giving them cash that they can do things with, getting yourself points. You are, with a worker, going to a spot someone else wants to go to. You are fighting for control on that research track because being at the top means your books are more valuable and it's easier for you to get your own color books than other players. I like all that. It is a tight game. Someone in my group said that it reminded them a bit of Lorenzo Il Magnifico, and it is not as good as that amazing game, but I can see some of the similarities as you are kind of moving on tracks and trying to manipulate things, but it is tight. You'll never feel like you have enough money or enough books, and moving up that research track seems like this immensely daunting feat, although it's possible to do so. You can work towards it. I haven't figured out what the best strategy to the game is yet, which is not a bad sign. I've gotten lots of students. That's good. I've done a lot of points as quickly as I could. In the last game I played, I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to get a bunch of points to get an extra worker as fast as I could. And it worked. I had an extra worker pretty quickly. But I think that slow start resource-wise hurt me over the course of the game. I don't know. The special abilities are cool. I didn't go over what they all are, but there's one that gives you 2 coins per book that you display each round. There's one that changes several of the action spaces on the board to be something else. There's one that whenever you tap your teachers, you can do so for free. You don't need a book. Some feel maybe better than the others, but at the end of the day, you can also, if you really want to pick, if you think one's better than the others, you can take less resources at the beginning to pick that person. And I like that drafting at the beginning. The only thing I don't really like about the game, there's 2 things. One's minor, and that's that there's symbology everywhere. I mean, there's symbols all over the place. It's not that hard to understand, but there's just a lot of symbols. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Especially on the research track, because they're all different there, and like, what does that mean? And it almost is a little symbol clutterific. As you look at it, you're like, whoa. I mean, I think the game is beautiful and pretty, but symbols can be a bit overwhelming. The other thing is the sliding the bookcase at the top. So I didn't mention, but at the end of every round, you take one of your bookcases, you slide, and all your books move. One of the books falls off if it's at the end, and the bookcases keep moving around. Those bookcases are worth 1, 2, or 3 points. And remember, I said if you buy from somebody else, you take the points and flip them over. That concept is cool. I just don't know that the sliding didn't feel like it brought a lot to the game, but I can live with that. It's those points. There's 1 bookcase, 2 point bookcases, 3, and at the beginning of the game, they're like, set it up any way you want. Okay, I'll put my 3 bookcases at the end so someone can buy a book right away and give me 3 points, but they're going to buy that bookcase anyway. And I felt that those different point amounts just felt like a little bit of extra randomness that didn't actually bring any weight to the game. I also wonder, at the end of the day, if this will be a game that we're still talking about in several years. Now, granted, there's lots of games we're not going to be talking about in several years. But I'm like, what is the main difference in this game? So for me, I'll talk about those. What feels unique about this game? The variable book costs and moving up that research track so that my books are more valuable than yours, and therefore you pay those for students, that's an intriguing part to this game. The teachers and paying books for them and then using those teachers to give lectures felt a little bit different. But everything else we've seen before. It's in a good, strong package. It's a good quality game, and a lot of people are going to like it, and I am included in that list. But I think that keeps it from becoming a great game, is because if you said, Tom, what's special about Alma Mater, I would have a hard time. I'd be like, ooh, plastic books. That's not good enough, right, per se. But it is a good, solid worker placement game. It's going to be one where you are constantly not worrying about even what you do, but what the other players do. And there's an interesting economy with the books as they change in value and how hard they are to get over the course of the game. So that's Alma Mater. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.